And that's what a lot of ancient traditions describe as influential beings over a certain society, right? So,
Right.
and correct me if I'm wrong, brothers, but it takes that concept and it says like, hey, look, this particular or this group of consciousness, right, might manifest its thoughts, if you will, on this particular group of people, and they act the way that they act.
Yes.
They think the way that they think.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Which is a concept that's been around for a very, very, very long time.
Right. So these individual entities become a larger entity that serve as a walking library where each entity has access to everyone else's memory and knowledge. And this process continues to the fifth and sixth densities as the social memory complexes become larger and more powerful. So, in a lot of these channelers you see that's out there, I'll throw out Abraham Hicks, Cryon, Bashar. It's many. I'm not gonna sit here and name all of them, but they don't speak as I. You usually don't see them speak as I.
Right.
They say we, because when they're speaking, it's different. They're tapping into a social memory complex that has different experiences, and when they're speaking to you, someone that may have been, or some entity that may have been through something similar or the same as you, will speak to your heart so you can get the understanding.
Right.
So someone that might be watching this that's very religious will say, well, the only time I seen an entity talk and say, well, we did this or we did that is legion. I am legion, for we are many. Because I had somebody tell me that when I started channeling.
Right.
So I'll say this. Let us create man in our image and our likeness. It didn't say let I.
Right.
Let me.
Right.
It said let us.
Exactly.
Who or what was that? And when we use, we look at words in the Hebrew, we see God.
Right.
And in the English, we see big G, God, and little g, God. It's very indicative of what's going on. Because if we think of a great light that's fractalized into the many, I could say, I will create. But then when we fractalize, that will is carried into every fractal.
Right.
And each fractal says, I will create. And if they're collective consciousnesses, they will say, let us create in our image and our likeness. And that same image that they have is actually a representation of the image that is projected from the original source.
I give you a very relevant example. What's your favorite car?
I don't know anymore.
Well, one that you used to like.
BMW 7 Series.
Okay. When you step into the BMW 7 Series, you step into the consciousness of that architect.
Right. That's interesting.
Got it.
And you become that.
You understand what I'm saying?
Because once you get in the car,
so
you become that car.
every vehicle is a geometric pattern of consciousness. Because it harnesses whatever's in the sphere of their space of awareness. The technology, right? The upholstery, the visual enhancement of the vehicle, right? Its functionalities, just its computer programming, all of that, right? That stems from a collective consciousness.
Right.
And where did that come from? In the essence of I will create.
Right.
The idea of bara,
Right.
to create.
That's why you can see this is the fourth principle in theory, because you can see singular as well as many.
Many.
Right.
In that understanding is very layered. I always use the concept of an egg. An onion. An onion is one onion, but as you peel it, it's so many layers until you get to the core. So one could say, well, God created everything. How can you say there's many? Because there is and there isn't all at the same time.
Right. And where there isn't, it's one.
It's one.
It's one.
It's one.
So, again, I'm gonna keep echoing this, right? It's allowing yourself to obtain the vision of the sacred pattern.
Right.
because it's all throughout. It's the fabric of everything that makes a visual society what it is.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and I know for some people it's going to be as it says in the scripture, it's going to be a hard lesson, because how can there be one and be many and not one at the same time? And that's very hard. But when you get the understanding of the concept of a fractal, and you say I will create, and then you have what we perceive as many eyes, but they're all functioning under the will or the original prime thought of creating.
Right.
And even though we say there's a war in heaven or wars that's happening, these are actual manifestations of the thought of the one having an experience in realms and dimensions we call physical, we may call spiritual, we call them whatever it is that we need to get an understanding, but they all are functioning for the will of the one.
Right.
And I stopped there.
Right. I remember that's the green chakra.
The green, there you go. We get back on that track.
Green chakra, which is the heart chakra. Love, compassion, forgiveness, self-acceptance. The body parts that's correlated with it is the heart, circulatory system, blood, rib cage. That's interesting, because if you look in the scripture when it says, took the rib to make woman, but I know it don't say rib, but a side of a person. The diaphragm, the thymus, the breast, arms, hands, and shoulders. So if you're having issues with some of those parts, you might need to love more.
Each one of those are support elements of the body.
Exactly.
Yes.
They support another function in the totality of the being.
Right. The meditation on that, if you're gonna do a toning, is is or you could do some people do rom. All right. And like I say, what I got out of the scriptures would be Israel, because they're supposed to be the center portion of the world. We were supposed to teach the people
All right.
everything that's supposed to go on within the world.
Okay.
It was given to Israel. If you read it up in the scriptures, as saying, Israel is my people.
Okay.
So, and you're supposed to do this and let the other nations see this, and you're supposed to be grand to the other nations.
Okay. I'm gonna take that construct and remove the people. Not
Right.
taking away from it. I'm just
Right.
gonna take the construct of the words
Exactly.
Yisrael or Yisrael or Yisrael. He who is like God.
Exactly.
He who is like God.
Right.
So he who is like God will teach the nations and teach the people.
Right.
And based on the construct of how I understand the story, it's not necessarily incumbent on one race or group of people.
Right.
It's put in there that way, or it's perceived that way, but what it is almost like an infection. I don't like using the term infection, but it's this entity, right? It's being exactly what it's being. And as it rubs shoulders or comes upon other entities, they see something in that entity that is useful for evolutionary or the growth of consciousness and awareness.
Exactly.
And it begins to spread. And then that entity starts creating more entities that is like God.
Right.
So as it says, Israel or Yisrael is my son, or my first begotten son.
Right.
And if Israel is making more Israels,
Right.
then we all on earth become the sons and daughters of God.
Right.
Right. So moving on to the correlation of the fourth density, and I think we'll probably wrap it up after the fourth density, and then we'll finish up next weekend.
Oh, let me touch.
No, I'm not wrapping up yet. I'm just saying after we finish fourth density.
Right.
I mean fourth
Well,
chakra.
Let me put the the feast day out there, which would be Shavuot or what they would call Pentecost.
Okay.
Because at that time we know Israel received the law or the word to bring forth or go out,
Okay.
which is love actually, which you have which is lines up with the heart chakra.
Okay. So moving from the density to the actual chakra, continuing on, the fourth chakra is often referred to as the heart chakra. It is through the energy of this chakra that we become able to make decisions beyond the bounds of our karma. Decisions that invite us to truly follow our hearts and serve without concern for the desires of the lower realms. So like I said, it's a gateway into what we consider high spirit.
Repeat it again.
So this moves us to make decisions that invite us to truly follow our hearts and serve. Oh, excuse me. You said say it again. It is through the energy of this chakra that we become able to make decisions beyond the bounds of our karma. Decisions that invite us to truly follow our hearts and serve without concern for the desires of the lower realms.
Right. In the lower realms, they are immensely focused on the self-serving self path. That's all I was going to say on it.
Okay. I would say it's paradoxical.
I
Like
know.
I agree, but at the same time, the lower realms is where, again, we're choosing
You choose to develop there.
self-serving self
Right.
and self-serving others.
Right.
And then once you make that decision, once you get to the if you choose to move through the heart chakra, I say it that way, then
I mean, that's why everything, several texts, they have the pattern of weighing things or weighing decision making through the heart.
right.
The focus is on the building of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
You can either build it or you can keep rebuilding it.
Yeah.
So
The lower realms, as I said, it is here we confront the shadows of life, including lust, defiance, and anxiety, but in such a way that through devotion to compassion and honor, all is made well, including ourselves. With the awakening of the anahata, we come to realize that in the void of silence within this energy center, we can transcend our temptations toward violence. What counts here are matters of the heart and only the heart, which begin and end in love.
Right.
So, just an analogy, I'm going to take it to the Bible. Whether you're a believer in a Messiah or Christ or not, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say it this way. So if you take a menorah and align it with the chakras,
Right.
if you go through the heart chakra will be the representation of Christ or the Christ consciousness.
Right.
And you move through the Christ consciousness to get to the higher realms.
Right.
Following? So one would say that Christ, the Christ consciousness, Christ, Yeshua, who they call Jesus, he's dwelled and focused mainly on love, as well as Buddha and other, some would call them Christed beings or Buddha beings and so on and so forth. So the purpose is the energy center of love and relationships of the anahata or the heart chakra.
Right.
When you have imbalances in this area, you can really become very jealous,
Yep.
possessive. Can you think of any other imbalances for the heart chakra?
You don't have love, no compassion. For
No
things.
compassion.
You know what I mean? No hope.
All right. Since you say that, I'm gonna take a sidebar and align that what you're saying with the fourth density and the service to self path. That path evolves through the fourth density through the extreme